Hello everybody and welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts 3 playthrough extras. We are here in the Eclipse galaxy and we are going to go on a right roaring journey through as much of it as we can do. Because annoyingly, to break most of the purple crystals in this area, you need to have a 3-star gummy ship rank. We're not going to be doing all of the Eclipse today, which is a bit annoying, but we are going to be taking on all of the gummy ship missions, I think, in this, which will be hopefully quite fun. Basically, once you've beaten the game, the Eclipse offers up a series of extra challenging versions of bosses that you've already faced down. So you'll see the Astro Warrior in a harder form, you'll see the Dread Shark in a harder form, you'll also see probably a few others as well. So in terms of difficulty, there are definitely a few very challenging missions in the Eclipse, but certainly nothing that we can't handle. Although whether we will necessarily do well is a different kettle of fish. We might have to come back to some of these missions with a better ship. I was just sort of getting to grips with it all and mostly, trying to find delightful constellations and all that jazz.
Let's see.
So, I believe this one is it Ultros? I think it might be. Just need to get a slightly better position in terms of getting that photo down pat.
Let's see. Nice.
Oh no, it's oh god, is that? Oh, it's Omega, which is quite a cool ship. It's not necessarily the most amazing, but it's got a lot of health from what I remember, so it can be quite useful. And we'll go and collect the others as well. So obviously, in the last part, I was just going through sort of some of the interviews, and actually, sort of one of the things I said that I would discuss in the next part, and I might as well do it now because this is effectively exactly the same as the previous parts. It's just that it is notably shorter, but that's because most of the Eclipse stuff is going to end up being in the next part, which is a little bit annoying, but there we go, these things happen. So basically, we're going to go back to Kingdom Hearts 3 Ultimania, and this is going to be the main Nomura interview. Once again, as translated by Goldpanna and uploaded to KH Insider, so thank you very much for those. So, the interview basically opens with the reason that there are 2 theme songs in Kingdom Hearts 3 is because of the support from fans. And I mean, considering how kind of, crazy Kingdom Hearts fans are, yeah, I think that's a nice little nod, tip of the hat to them. So, at about what time did the production of Kingdom Hearts 3 begin? Well, Nomura began conceptualizing it right after they'd finished with Kingdom Hearts 2. Actual development didn't begin until much later, but from the beginning they had planned to release it on the PS4 and Xbox One. There were rumours that they'd initially planned to release it on the PS3, but the PS4 was already the latest console by the time development had begun. So it was always going to be for PS4 and Xbox One, even before they changed the game engine from Luna Studios to the Unreal Engine. Unlike Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, development was handled by the Osaka team for Kingdom Hearts 3. So the Osaka team have been responsible for handling the development of the handheld games, like Birth by Sleep, as well as Rechain of Memories and the HD remasters. And Nomura says that from the beginning he'd always wanted them to grow into a team that could develop a main-numbered title for consoles. They'd gained plenty of experience with the series while developing the non-numbered games, and the Tokyo team had begun work on another title by then, so the time was finally right to leave Kingdom Hearts 3 to them. Debatable, but hey, these things happen. So, at the beginning of production, what sort of things were requested from the team? Well, the first world that they decided on was Toy Box from the Toy Story series. So he told them that he wanted to make battles where you could hop in and out of robots. Also said he wanted to make the project of having time-sensitive commands appear and pile up above the command menu the main focus. And later, when it had been decided that they'd go ahead with Kingdom Hearts 0.2, they included that system as a sort of experiment, sort of, get used to it all. Obviously, the next question is, we were worried that Utada Hikaru, who performed the theme songs for every numbered title up until, obviously, Kingdom Hearts 3, would not return for the game, as she'd been taking an extended break from music at the time, but she returned safely to the business and provided the theme song this time around too. His response to that was, we actually approached Miss Utada regarding new songs for the non-numbered titles too, but we didn't get the opportunity to have it come to fruition. But because this game was to be the latest entry to the numbered titles, the time was ripe to ask her for a new song, and when they did, Miss Utada was the one who proposed that instead of using an arrangement for the opening theme, they go with a second completely different new song, obviously Over the Moon. Nomura believes that it was the power of the KH fans around the world that motivated her to do such a thing. All the messages sent to Miss Utada from fans globally would have been a big encouragement to her, you'd like to think. And I mean, that is really quite sweet. The fact that, because I remember hearing sort of at least once or twice that Utada Hikaru had sort of complex feelings, I suppose, towards the Kingdom Hearts themes, because there had been a challenge of obviously having to write them in both Japanese and English, and obviously kind of tackling the challenges of that. And I remember there just being sort of a slight note of somewhat frustration, I suppose, in that, which was a shame and sort of made us think, oh, she maybe doesn't want to come back, but no, she did, and I'm so glad she did, because those songs are amazing, and I love them. So, continuing onwards, Nomura is obviously also an illustrator. What kind of illustrations did he have in mind for this game? Well, Nomura says, knew he'd have to at least draw the box art, and he got depressed when he remembered how hard it would be with so many characters. Always used A4 size copy paper when drawing original pieces, and he does his best to fit everything into that, but when he started drawing the box art this time on an A4 piece of paper, he'd only draw Sora, Riku and Kairi when he realised there was no way everyone was going to fit. So he joined two pieces of paper together and redrew it on that, while thinking to himself, if I'd done it digitally, I could have just copy-pasted the three people I'd already drawn. That illustration dragged itself out until right before the deadline, colouring included. Took him about a week of straight work to finish. For some reason, the packaging manufacturing deadline for the overseas version was a lot earlier than the domestic one, so he worked on it in the midst of people urging him to hurry, since at this rate the international version is just going to have a plain black cover. So that explains why it did take so goddamn long to get a front cover for the game. After Kingdom Hearts 2 was released, Pixar was purchased by Disney. Did this expand the range of worlds available for you to include in this title? Nomura's response is, actually, they did make a few trial models of characters from Monsters Inc. and Toy Story during the production of Kingdom Hearts 2. We already knew that because obviously Woody and Buzz models were still in the game. They did have to shelve them in the end, obviously, and they did begin negotiations before that. But he felt that he couldn't make Kingdom Hearts 3 without including Pixar works, so he started up those negotiations again, and because the situation between Disney and Pixar had changed, they were able to make it happen. After they'd finished deciding all the worlds for the game, Disney and Pixar kept releasing fascinating titles, and he found himself wishing over and over again that they could have included this and that. So my assumption would be things like Inside Out, Coco, etc., because I think that they would have all led to very fascinating stories. So including Monsters Inc. and Toy Story and Kingdom Hearts 3 were highest priority for him, and Nomura says even so, the hurdles we had to jump to get there were higher than he'd expected. To begin with, went to America twice for negotiations, where it turned out that they couldn't move forward with that until they had a plot. So Nomura wrote the plot of Toy Box at a stage where the main story still hadn't been written. After that, they were in correspondence for quite a long time until the plans were boiled down into something they finally approved. It was the first time they'd worked with Pixar and built a relationship with them through Toy Story, which they then used as a base when suggesting other titles. obviously we were all quite surprised that the plot of Pixar World were continuations of the original movies. And Nomura replies with, originally the basic pattern of the Kingdom Hearts series was that Sora and the others get involved in scenes that depict the happenings of the original films. The Tangled and Frozen worlds fit that description, obviously. However, with Toy Story and Monsters Inc., upon request from the creators, they went with the pattern of depicting a period set after the movie as an authorised history, which pattern the world would follow depending greatly on the ideas of the creators and producers of the movies. So obviously that does come into play, the fact that those creators inspired how those plots would go. The stories based on the events of the original movie still managed to cleverly incorporate episodes involving Sora and his friends, didn't they, is the question, and Nomura says that is the achievement of Oka, who's Masaru Oka, the scenario and cutscene director, and the level design team, the team that obviously, creates the shape of the level. In recent Kingdom Hearts titles, Oka had been discussing and deciding the location and flow of battles and cutscenes with the level design team and creating tentative scenarios that fit. Nomura then goes and touches things up in the final stages, but what he corrects is mostly to do with dialogue. The events of the story of each world mostly prioritise the level design, and that makes sense. The next question is, it's a fun one. So, Disney has now acquired companies other than Pixar, such as Marvel and Lucasfilm. Will this expand the range of worlds available for future games? Nomura's answer, yes! However, the contracts necessary to use a franchise in a game are each tied to their own separate companies, and in several cases there are existing contracts with other game companies, primarily Star Wars here. So it's not as simple as the company has been acquired by Disney so it can appear in Kingdom Hearts. They were only able to use a single cut of Mickey in Kingdom Hearts 1 for a similar reason. Another game company was releasing a Mickey game around the same time, so they told them that they couldn't use him at all, but Nomura was persistent and ended up receiving an idea for a compromise. You can use him if it's just one cut, and it's just his silhouette and he's just waving from far away or something. Deliberated over how to make the very most of that one chance, and the result is that very first appearance in Kingdom Hearts 1. Among the worlds of Kingdom Hearts 3, Olympus is a constant that has appeared in nearly every game in the series so far. Does Nomura have particular feelings towards it? And it's basically, there wasn't really a reason for it, it just by chance. The reason it appears in Kingdom Hearts 3 is simply because it made for a perfect opening to the journey. Sora going to visit a hero who had once regained lost powers in order to try and regain his own. If Nomura to say that he had particular feelings about it, he'd say that he loves having Hades appear. He's a very funny character, and I start wanting to watch him moving about. In Nomura's words. So obviously, the 100 Acre Wood is another constant. And that's because Pooh is the kind of character who makes you feel safe just by being there. Since Nomura knew that the other world would take up a lot of production time, he thought from the start that he wanted to make the 100 Acre Wood a place for you to take a breather from the adventure with a light minigame. And obviously what's then mentioned is the unique style of the graphics in the world, with character outlines being much stronger. That processing wasn't added to the game until the last stages of development. Obviously they used what they called the Kingdom Shader to make the feel of the graphics change for each world, but Pooh's world was just normal, so they had to make the graphics less like the cartoon and more like the original picture book. When trying to bring out that storybook feel, he was personally very particular about the colour of the sky. Obviously then, on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Caribbean was overwhelmingly detailed. And Nomura replies with, in a way, that world was what determined the graphics quality for the whole game. In the early stages of development, Nomura created a video of Sora sailing the sea and riding enemies through the skies for an in-house presentation session. The quality of the graphics in that one-off test clip was so high and it looked so overwhelmingly good among all the other titles that Square Enix was developing at the time that it completely stole the show at that presentation session. So he sensed that that world would be a highlight right from those early days. And the coat that Sora wears in the Caribbean is designed after a coat of his own that he gave the staff as a reference upon his request. Wasn't sure whether he'd gotten it back yet at the time of the interview. So, of all Sora's world-specific forms, he undergoes quite a drastic change in Monstropolis. In the beginning, he considered having him wear some kind of monster onesie like Boo does in the original film, but thanks to Pixar's wishes, he ended up turning into a monster. Obviously, in the original Monsters Inc. there are rather strict rules concerning the colours and eye shapes that can be used in character designs, so after they decided upon designs that fit those rules, Nomura made the final adjustments of his own. Sora in particular started off with a soft, shiny body that he felt wasn't quite coming together, so he put fur on him. Then Pixar instructed him to not make him look too much like a cat. It was a struggle to find a compromise, and so even though it looks like Sora has cat ears, they're actually horns. Then move on to, you were able to create the graphics of the world based on CG titles to a very high level. Did you use graphics data from the original films? And they did receive some to use as a reference, but obviously due to factors such as the number of polygons and the data format, it's not something that's possible to use directly. So they did create everything from scratch, trying to make it look the same as the original film. For the cutscenes, the staff in charge watched the original films over and over again, adjusting the camera work and blocking. If you think that they recreated the graphics to a high level, it's all thanks to the hard work of those staff. And then obviously you have Classic Kingdom in the style of an old LCD game. Nomura's vision was that since each minigame is based on a different short film, he wanted to make each minigame into a world just like the other Disney works. Although even as worlds, they don't have maps, they have one screen. LCD games were booming when Nomura was a child, but his parents wouldn't buy them for him, so he bought them for himself when he grew up. He has dozens of them. He wanted to make a smartphone RPG with LCD game style graphics, and had even submitted a project plan unrelated to Kingdom Hearts. He has said if he could, he'd love to make a real Classic Kingdom LCD game handheld. I'm not sure I'd be quite down for that, but hey, there we go. So, obviously, with this game, the Dark Seeker saga is complete. When did he sort of have that conclusion in mind? And Nomura says that he started envisioning it as the Dark Seeker saga at the time of Kingdom Hearts 2. He more or less had the outline of the story decided around then. There are parts that changed from his initial vision as he went on writing the scenarios, for as manga artists often say, characters have a mind of their own. However, the main flow of events didn't change, and I think when you have finally gotten that overarching plan, it really does help direct you in where you want to go, and that's always nice. And then sort of following on from that, we have the fact that in Kingdom Hearts 2 we learned that Ansem, who appeared in Kingdom Hearts 1, was not the real one. Was that planned from the start? The answer was no. When he was writing the scenario for Kingdom Hearts 1, he thought that Ansem sure is super evil for a so-called wise man, and that feeling was the seed that then influenced the setup from Kingdom Hearts 2 onwards. Then, obviously, nobody would have, guessed how important Xigbar ended up being when he first appeared in Kingdom Hearts 2 either. And Nomura said that, I hear that a lot, but on the inside I meant for Xigbar to be a character with a special position from early on, which is why I had him do suspicious things. During voice recording for Kingdom Hearts 2, while listening to Hochu Osuka's voice, Xigbar's voice actor, I felt that there was no way Xigbar was just an ordinary soldier in the system. He definitely had something going on behind the scenes. And midway through the production, the setup developed into what we have now. That kind of thing does happen sometimes. The setup behind a character transforming is bounced off a voice actor, and that's quite cool. So yes, the story's endgame, where all your friends and foes gather at the Keyblade Graveyard, was a masterpiece, as what the interview says. And Nomura says, I know each fan has their own different beloved character, so I wanted to give each one an appropriate moment. But in the end, there was too much story that had to be told then, and it ended up being restricted to the minimum necessary to move Sora forward. The truth is, the Keyblade Graveyard was the toughest part I faced when writing the scenario. Shining the spotlight on each character one by one allows you to depict the unfolding developments with time and care, but the flow of the game requires the player to control Sora and fight battles. Ideally, should have had characters with connections fight it out one by one and settle things that way, but that would have required too much exposition. On the other hand, did think of limiting the number of enemies you actually battle and finishing others with cutscenes, but it didn't feel right. At the end of deep worry and thought, narrowed my aim and ended up with the way it is now, which prioritises rhythm. Honestly, I think that does make sense. Because of the nature of the story, there was always going to be too much to try and close off at the end. And they perhaps could have solved some of it earlier on, but I do think that they probably would have struggled either way. And that's just me putting my thoughts in there. So the final world is introduced as a place that is very important to the story. What kind of world is it? It's the world where those one step from death end up, a place connected to the Station of Awakening. The Station of Awakening, as we've seen it so far, has been a stained glass pillar standing in pitch darkness, and it represents the inside of the heart. But this time, Nomura wanted to represent it more tangibly, so he wanted to set up that the final world is like a portal for each heart. As said in the game, the edges of sleep and death touch. Hearts that are in a state of sleeping are in the Station of Awakening, and if they continue to walk forward from there, they'll end up in the final world. That's the sort of image he was going for. Was there a reason that no Final Fantasy characters appeared in the game this time? And it was basically simply that there was no room. There were so many characters appearing in the main story that in the end wasn't able to create opportunities to use the Final Fantasy characters, although he did have the team make polygon models of Leon and some others just in case. They also made the fairy godmother from Cinderella and a few others, but by the end he just couldn't find a place to use them, and the production staff were mad at him, because of course. And then we move on to some talks about the secret ending and the epilogue. So obviously both the epilogue and secret movie made quite the impact. And does what we see in the epilogue mean that the characters from Kingdom Hearts Union Cross have been revived? The blunt answer is yes. The Keyblade Masters from distant past, known as the Foretellers, have transcended time to gather once again. Xigbar 2 was once a Foreteller. Luxu has been alive for a very long time, changing his form. Xigbar says, "I had a role to play, and after all these years, it is done." What was his role? Nomura, being typical Nomura, he was directed by his mentor, someone called the Master of Masters, to make sure that the Keyblade entrusted to him was passed down into the future. This was tied to another mission, which will be made clear in a future game. And then, obvious question of, we really want to know what's inside the black box. Everyone asks that, but it's the key to the future games. As the Master of Masters said in Kingdom Hearts Key back cover, it's a surprise! In the last part of the epilogue, 7 black pieces are brought out to be used in a new game. Do 6 of those represent the 6 apprentices of the Master of Masters? Yes, they do. Who is the remaining one? It's someone you may be able to guess, but it's a secret. I think we can all pretty much agree that's pretty much the Master of Masters. So is Sora the white piece? Well, maybe. Either way, the epilogue is hinting at what is to come after the Dark Seeker saga, so it's going to be the Lost Foretellers saga, effectively. So next, the secret movie. Does that scene follow on from the ending? And bluntly, yes. When Sora disappears at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, he ends up in the world in the secret movie. That's how the sort of events flow. And then the next obvious question is Sora in the world of The World Ends With You? At the end there, because obviously it is Shibuya. And I was just like, it does look like it, but there's more meaning in the fact that it is not Shibuya, written with kanji, but Shibuya written with katakana. Also, Sora promised Neko and the others in Kingdom Hearts 3D that he would meet them in Shibuya, written in katakana, but that doesn't mean it's directly connected to this movie. I feel he might be slightly cheaping out on us there. I think he's sort of tricking us a little bit. Obviously, the scenery for the world of the world Riku is in is also very exciting. Feels like it's trying to summon past memories. The man looking down from the roof of the building looks a lot like Yuzora from Vera and Rex, and yes, it is Yuzora. So that means that that's the world of Vera and Rex, and yes, that's right. Nomura says, I know the visuals have some people thinking it's the same as a title I've been working on in the past, but it isn't. Final Fantasy Versus 13. There are parts of the unreleased project that have been cooking along inside me, so there's a chance that I may have some overlap of ideas, but Vera and Rex is a completely different thing. Of course it is, Nomura. Nobody knows what was in the project that wasn't released, and Virum Rex doesn't even exist yet. So perhaps it's difficult to understand right now, but he will say that they are different things and leaves it at that. Of course, Nomura, of course we believe you on that one. And then, who was the person in the black robe who made a heart with their hands against the moon in the final scene? Was the Master of Masters. Nobody else would be messing around while dressed like that. And then basically the next batch of things were just sort of DLC related. So, was work on the upcoming DLC going well? Nomura said, at this point in time, I've given staff a list of battle elements I want to do, and they're investigating. As for additional story, I think it will mainly be expanding on the Keyblade Graveyard, things that you mentioned before when talked about narrowing his aim. Does plan to complete it as soon as possible, but as they're working on it alongside preparation for the next project, still can't tell you when it would be expected for release. And they are planning to present several pieces of content as one pack, rather than release 7 separate things. Which to me suggests that Remind might be the only bit of Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC we'll be getting. Which honestly I am fine with, as long as it's sort of relatively decent in length. And then final mixes have been a staple of the Kingdom Hearts series. Do you plan to release one for Kingdom Hearts 3 too? Answer, no. No plans for a separately released final mix title. He's thinking of adding an English mode to the DLC pack for Japanese players. Also, they will mod it with the battle difficulty levels due to taking the tendencies of modern players into consideration. But since people want to fight harder enemies, just planned to release the critical mode as a free download and add final mix type tough enemies to the purchasable DLC pack. So obviously critical mode has now been released. The final mix type enemies will come in the DLC pack. With the end of the Darkseeker saga creating a moment of punctuation to the series, how does Nomura feel? He says he expected to feel relieved once it was over, but it hasn't been like that at all. Even now he's right in the middle of work on DLC, and he's involved in several other titles all at the same time. Also want to hurry up and start work on the next title, so honestly it doesn't feel like any kind of punctuation to him. And then, fans would love to know what's coming next in the series. And no official projects have been decided, so we can't say anything at that point. The current top priority for the KH series is KH3 DLC, and at the time they're also in the middle of preparing a large update for Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. For the time being, he does have 2 ideas for future development, and there's another special project that he has to think about. He hopes to be able to tighten those up into 2 future titles. Also, there are things that need to be depicted before Kingdom Hearts 4 can be made, so he's considering the possibility of doing another title in between, so that they can move on past the Darkseeker saga. He hopes for the support of the fans of the series to sort of, continue, as you would. And then last but not least, the secret of the title that only he knows, although now obviously everybody knows it. There were theories that the cat next to Ventus on the box art was Chirithy, but it's actually Nomura's pet cat. Also, the protuberances on the corners of the clock tower are actually black-robed figures, and that's quite cool. So, I really like that, and that's a lot of fun. So, I have got a few other Ultimania related things to sort of take you through in the next part, because the next part is going to be quite hefty. And I can tell you now, we'll definitely be facing this guy on again. The Omega version of this boss here is really quite challenging to get an A rank on. Also to survive, because it's just a really long fight. I thought going in with, this really bulky gummy ship would do me good, but it hasn't necessarily, doesn't necessarily get me the score that I would like. But that's fine, we will live. Also, I've just seen that, the Kingdom Hearts 3 manga is sort of, it exists, it is going to exist. So I believe that chapter 0, so the prologue, has been published or is due to be published relatively soon. But so yeah, so it does exist digitally. But obviously, knowing me, I'm just going to wait for them to do it physically, because, like, seriously, I just really want to experience that manga series again, because the Kingdom Hearts manga is excellent, and also just a really fantastic way of experiencing the story of the series, because, I mean, in both iterations, it took elements of the stories and sort of did a little bit more of a deep dive on certain elements of character, certain elements of plot. It basically foresaw the whole Organisation 13 actually having hearts thing before anybody else, well, before it was mentioned in the game at all. It was insane. And I just love that. Also, as you can see, I'm already quite low on health. This ship, while it has a lot of health, I would definitely recommend you go into this fight with being able to heal yourself. You want that special ability, because it just makes this a lot more bearable and not as terrifying. Also, as you can see, because it's not doing huge amounts of damage, it really does take absolutely forever to get through this thing. And even if I manage to get to the end of this, which, I mean, you know, it is not looking likely, it's really, really difficult to get up to that A rank. I would say that I found this fight way harder than I found the actual super secret optional fight. And the thing is that you actually do need to do this, I think, if you want to get an Orichalcum Plus. The way that you get to this is just follow what I did. If you go and kill the 4 bosses at sort of the extremities, and then this guy will turn up at the top. So you do need to beat him if you want that ultimate weapon, which basically means you should probably, you know, go and take on that other secret optional boss to get the better ship to stand a much better chance of taking this thing down. But we are on the final stage now, and I just need to, you know, not die. But I will say that this stage is very difficult to not die on. But come on, we are nearly there. It's like that moment where you can just go, come on! You can do it! You're so close! And there we go! I did actually manage to beat the damn thing! And for beating the Omega Machina, there is that Orichalcum Plus. That is what we needed to make our wonderful, wonderful ultimate weapon. I think I might have another 1 or 2 things to go before I actually, you know, make the damn thing. But hey, now that that's done, we're gonna sort of have a little bit of a break of a day for you guys. We're just gonna go back to the world map, and then we're going to go into the final stretch of Gummy Ship goodness. Let's go!